3, 2, 1.
Guys, what up? This is Drew, and
this is Brad
with Unidentified Flying Podcast. I usually say something pseudo clever every time. I don't know. We're beaming you up again.
There you go.
On our flying saucer.
It's your down week, man. We won't blame you.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. So we're testing a little bit of a different mic setup here. So if they, people made it through those first few episodes, yeah, I think
we thank you.
Yeah, really, we're finding our legs there. But this we kind of got an external mic and a headset going, just kind of seeing how it works, and I think it's going to sound fine. However, if you do pick up the sound of me vaping, it's a fucking podcast. We're just chilling. We're literally in my room, so it's casual, baby.
That's right.
It's casual Friday every time on UFP.
That's right.
So if it gets too annoying, sure,
every day ends in Y, man.
Exactly. And if it gets too bad, go ahead and in the at UFP on Twitter, Unidentified Flying Podcast on Facebook, and at UFP Podcast at gmail.com.
That's our email. Yes.
And I kind of butchered that.
Send us some hate mail.
Yeah, let us know if the sound of me vaping is that bad. I'll probably still do it. But anyway. So today we're going to talk about something we haven't talked a lot about. I mean, we did one kind of podcast where we talked a lot about it, but we're going to visit it again, some local stuff, some Oklahoma stuff. And you got a few topics, I know.
Yeah, I mean, we just haven't... Not that I don't think hasn't been anything worth locally to talk about. It's just... There's been all sorts of other things, sports and... we did our James Bond episode. And exactly.
Yeah. And then I think we're going to end with a little bit of NFL stuff. You want to go ahead and what's the...
Well, I'll just ask you, we're going to talk about local stuff, Oklahoma. Okay. A lot of it's, the economy, the state budget, some politics thrown in. So, I mean, if that's too dry for you, we'll try and make it, somewhat entertaining.
I'll probably say something really stupid that'll make it worthwhile.
Okay. Well, I mean, do you know anything about it? I mean, I know...
Nope.
You have... No, I have no idea what's going on.
Well, I do know... Well, it depends which part are we talking about first.
Well, I guess we could probably start on...
If we're talking about the DA stuff, I've heard a little bit about
Yeah, let's start on that, the Attorney General.
Or yeah, not the DA, yeah, I'm sorry, the AG, yeah.
A little different, but yeah, Scott Pruitt is the Attorney General,
mm-hmm.
and I think what kind of started me looking into some of this was it came out, I think a month or two ago, that his budget for his office was... running over, basically, and a lot of people were questioning, hey, why are you spending so much money, especially in a time where people are cutting their budgets? Mm-hmm. I think just because revenues weren't doing so well, and that's not even counting oil dropping off a cliff, which I think we're going to talk about. We'll kind of weave that into what we're talking about too. So he gets, I think, an X amount of dollars every year for his budget, and that's just stuff he uses to do lawsuits, file cases, evidence fund, salaries
to pursue justice.
To pursue
on behalf
justice.
Of the state.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's his job. That's what he's elected for. And I think he, when he was elected, he ran unopposed.
Yeah, I think he did.
He wasn't even. There wasn't even a contest.
Is that good, baby?
Here's the job. I guess so. I mean, some people, he is Republican. So I'm going to throw that out there. So, I mean, I guess some people, if you're definitely against that type of thing, then you might hate his guts. But I think what got a lot of people was the fact that he gets X amount of dollars, which...
How much does he get?
I think he's allotted at least $14 million. And that goes out to...
I'm assuming that's annually.
Yes.
Okay.
That goes out to people for domestic violence funds... and just different things around the state that deal with stuff like that.
Okay.
It's not just domestic violence. I probably should know a little more about exactly where it goes, but basically he's over budget. Like he's allotted somewhere a little over $14 million. He was already over budget at I think $28 million, which was over
Holy
budget.
shit!
Well, that's just the start. Then after that, I think he went up to 48.6. Yeah, so that's why people were kind of like, "What the hell?" Like, what are you spending?
He doing? Like, has he accounted for this money
Well,
publicly?
when people asked him, about it, he basically said that, I get X amount of dollars to divvy out these funds to different agencies across the state, and plus he uses some of it, and that was basically it. He also said that, and this I don't know if he said this personally. This is his office saying this, that he's expanding, paying for lawsuits against the federal government because Obama's the ultimate dictator, and I don't know how to, that's basically how it sounded. Like, he's overreaching.
He's expanding lawsuits, like payouts. For
Well, he has a bunch of lawsuits against the federal government, and we've got that one going against
okay, so this
Colorado.
Is money, so this is money to pursue those.
Yes, and that's where like some people are like, is that the best use of that much money? Like,
Well, yeah,
I think what a lot of it happened is the Attorney General's office was located in Oklahoma City, I believe, and then he moved it to Tulsa, where he's from. Or maybe opened another office. I don't know if he
like
moved the whole
or something.
Yeah, he opened a big office there, and I think
that
he said
money.
I think he said over half of the extra money that he's spending is just going towards salaries. More lawyers to,
of course,
fight Colorado, and that's a whole thing to talk about. Like,
what are we fighting Colorado over?
Well, we've joined a lawsuit with Nebraska.
So us in the
and we're suing Colorado because they voted to make marijuana legal.
What do we care?
And we're saying that it's making life bad for us Oklahomans here because we're next door and they can just bring that stuff over and they need to be.
Well, they could do that before.
I know, but now the state of Colorado is like sanctioning it because they made it legal.
Huh.
So we're saying they need to comply by federal rules. Because we're all in this together, baby. As far as the states go,
except for us suing the federal government on the other side of things.
Well, that's for other things. That's for like
Sure.
I don't know, Obamacare. I guess that might be one of them.
Yeah.
God, who knows? It's all sorts of. Basically, a lot of it turns out to be, I'm Republican and I don't like the Democratic president. That's my opinion. I don't because I don't ever see anything come out of it. These lawsuits don't ever really go anywhere.
Yeah, I'm sure once in a blue moon they do, but yeah, you're probably right.
And so so that I guess that might be one reason. Like, especially people are like, "Well, why do you got to spend so many more millions of dollars?"
Yeah, that's a shit ton of money. If he was over budget a little bit, I'd be like, hey, shit happens. But if you have a $14 million budget and you're up in the $48 million range, you've quadrupled your budget.
Yeah, and that kind of goes into he's not wanting to. The state auditor of Oklahoma, which is Gary Jones, his office is wanting to audit the Attorney General's office, which he's an elected official too.
Sounds like his job.
Yeah, that's his job, and I guess I kind of tried to look around and see why is he specifically wanting to audit the Attorney General? Because was it just because this over budget issue? Was it just because of that, or was this some?
It seems like a good
obviously
enough reason.
Yeah, or was there some obviously shady shit going on, and somebody was like, "Hey, we need to look into it." Sometimes I've seen some things where Mary Fallon saw something about this department and she was kind of curious about it. She can order the state auditor to go
and check it out.
Hey, check this out. The only thing I could really see what the deal was, is, at least from Gary Jones's point of view or his office's point of view, was how should I put this? He gets allotted money too to run the state audits. That costs money.
Sure.
And I guess he asked. I don't know if he asked for more money, or I think he was getting limited or cut on his budget,
while the AG's getting just a pipeline of
way
money.
more money than he even requested,
Sure.
or his office requested to do X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
So I don't know if he made the call solely on himself. It sounds like he did, or his office did. So he's basically saying, "Hey, we're going to audit their attorney general's office."
Okay.
So that happens. Attorney general's office, Scott Pruitt's office, sends him a email or letter or whatever a statement, and says, "Hey, we heard you were going to do that. By the way, we're actually going to hire our own independent auditor, so you don't even have to bother with doing hey, we just saved you a whole lot of trouble." Which that costs money too.
Yeah,
he's got to he's got to
pay that guy.
He's got to pay the independent auditor, whoever that is.
He's not going to do it for free, or whoever.
Exactly. So that's more money right there. So if you're wondering about that, and plus, this would make a lot more sense if it was just sometimes the state auditors, maybe an opposite party. Maybe he's a Democrat and the attorney general's a Republican.
Guys both Republicans?
They're both Republicans. So I think a lot of it, the statement Gary Jones made was he's not having enough money to do his job. His job is to do these types of things. And him asking for more money to do more auditing was seen as big government.
Who
just from, I think, maybe the governor
the
or
auditor?
They were concerned oh well, that's just big government at work. You don't need to look into this stuff. That's a government overreach. And he's like, no, I'm actually the office that you would hope give some transparency to
all these other
departments in the government, because I don't know, it's our freaking job.
He's the oversight department of their money.
You would hope.
Yeah, that's what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, there was a scandal, I think, with the previous state auditor. I don't know his name, but I just kind of saw this was 4 or 5, maybe plus years ago, where they were doing some shady stuff. So it's not out of the realm of possibility of the state auditor himself being corrupt.
Sure.
And
but if nothing else, if nothing else, he's drawing a lot of attention to it.
Yes.
So you would think that at least his intention is above board.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it is, because I'm sorry, if I were the state auditor, I think I would say a department that has basically quadrupled its budget, and at the same time, while it's been allowed to do that, all these other departments are experiencing shortfalls.
They're asking 3% budget cuts, and I think that was before.
Yeah, I think
oil's gone so much to shit here lately, which we're going to talk about.
Which I think that sounds like the auditor is doing what he should be doing.
It just seems kind of weird, especially because.
The question is, what has gone on in Oklahoma that would justify such a massive expansion of the attorney general, his function, his department?
Well, that's why I go back to what Scott Pruitt's office said. They needed the money to expand for all these lawsuits. That was basically it. And a lot of people were
Jesus,
okay,
how many lawsuits do we fucking have?
Well, that was what should it cost that much?
Well, yeah.
Or even if it does cost that much,
ask a lawyer.
Yeah, yes, true. Yeah, yes, it does cost that much. Yeah, look at the bill, baby. Yeah, I know, but it's at the very least, it's is that the best use of that much money? And, because we can debate philosophical points of view on these lawsuits on every issue, whether it's the marijuana issue or we don't like the federal government and we're just going to make our case on that type of thing.
Sure. All things aside, I'm a big proponent of a small, I'm not a huge fan of a very strong, I don't want to say strong's the wrong word. I'm not a big fan of a far-reaching federal government. However, I also don't have a problem with legalized marijuana. So that's part and parcel, really.
Yeah.
Well,
a lot of people in the state do.
I don't partake in it, and I don't intend to partake in it.
Yeah.
There might have been a certain point in time where things might have been a little different, but as far as it seems to me that on the face of it, it seems pretty obvious that the Attorney General has got some explaining to do.
Well, and it just kind of seems shady too, where you're hey, by the way, we're going to
get
our
own third party. It'd be
and then on top of that, that happens. They kind of get into a back and forth a little bit, which is what they're going through right now. And his office, Scott Pruitt's office, kind of goes out and says well, we're concerned because Gary Jones has made some comments to the media or on social media, basically saying that, hey, I think it's my job to go after this at the very least. Yep. And it just seems kind of weird that like you go out of your way to kind of attack him a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, it's like just shut up. If you're smart, Scott Pruitt, and you are doing something shady, like I wouldn't keep blowing this up. You know?
I mean, I've always kind of been like, it's always struck me as strange. Like, if the way that these people which I mean, I think it's part of the reason why a lot of people just don't trust politicians, because if I were Scott Pruitt and everything I was doing, I felt, you know, I think everything I've done, there's good reason to do it. I've made, you know, earmarks for everything that I've done. Yes, my books are open to you. Come take a look at it. Let me show you exactly why I've done what I've done.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, as much as he probably expects to be respected as the Attorney General, I think you got to respect the auditor as well. The auditor's job is to do what the hell he's doing.
They're both elected officials.
Exactly. So I don't know. That seems so ridiculous to me that the budget would expand that much. But I don't know. So what's the latest word on it? Is it just kind of?
That's basically kind of where it's at. Yeah,
okay,
I mean that's pretty recent.
So is the auditor? Is he going ahead and actually going to audit this guy? Like,
he says he is. So I'm like,
he's like, did he give any kind of timetable on like?
No. I mean that just happened. So,
okay,
I mean this is just happening being within the last
week or so,
a week or 2 month, give or take. You know.
Well, knowing the way the government, you know, bureaucracy at work, so it'll probably
be 2 years from now that we'll find out, you know, actually somebody did something wrong, and gee, his term already ran out.
Tune back in for episode 300 where we get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, really, it's just kind of odd, and that kind of goes into, you know, there's a lot of news this last week where, budgets they've been looking to cut budgets anyway, but then they cut so much out of schools, and that really just started pissing people off.
Yeah,
because that's something that hits home with voters, you know, which I can't blame them. You know, public schools, and if you've got kids and you're wanting to send them there, they could be saying we're cutting $10, and people would be like, what? You know, and I you know, that's in face of you know, Oklahoma doesn't exactly rake up very high in teacher pay or I think school performance, just on a lot of different metrics in the first place. So when you're looking at like, hey, we're cutting more out of the state budget for public funding for schools, you're going to get some people pissed off.
Yeah. Which, let's talk about oil really quick, because I saw,
and a lot of that ties into like that's why they're cutting a lot of stuff in the first place. We here at Oklahoma are very energy driven. Oil is it.
Yeah.
I mean, I that's how it's been my whole life, and I think over the years there's been, you know, boom and bust, and you know, all of us remember which ones those are if you know anything about it. Over the time, I think people have said, hey, you know, we've diversified the economy and it's not as bad. You know, if oil goes down, you know, we've got other sectors where, you know, our economy can rely on this, that, and the other. And, you know, that might be true, but it's just, oil is just so big in the state, it's like it doesn't matter.
Sure.
So when oil goes down, everybody goes down around here. And that kind of, I mean, this plays into everything, in my opinion. Like, you've got these budgets, crises, you got the earthquakes.
Yeah.
That have been happening.
Yeah.
There are two. Well,
hold on. Let's just take a little. Let's take, because I'm not originally from Oklahoma.
Okay.
You born and raised.
Yeah.
From Oklahoma, been here your whole life.
Yeah.
When I first moved to Oklahoma in like 1993, I think it was. Yeah. The only thing you ever had to worry about here was tornadoes. Tornadoes. There's a tornado season.
Crazy weather.
Yeah. You know, that's the big thing.
Mm-hmm.
However, I would say over the past 10 years tops, I mean, I would say
5 to 10, kind of depends.
Yeah, really let's just say the last 5, really. Mm-hmm. Earthquakes. Like we're the new San Andreas fault line. I don't know, what would you call it? I don't even know, the Red River fault line.
And there's a name for there's like one that runs through.
Yeah, I wonder what it's called.
It's a lot of smaller ones. It's not like a big
flyover
fault
line,
like the San
Andreas. We'll call it that. The flyover fault line. But I guess my question is, and I've only ever really felt one of these earthquakes. and you were actually over here. We were watching a football game.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, no, I remember that.
You were just getting ready to leave.
I've been asleep for all the other ones. They seem to happen at like 4 or 5 in the morning, and I'm like...
Or somebody will be
I'm
like,
not
you
hearing
know, I'll come in from one room to another, and somebody will be like, hey, did you feel that earthquake? I'm like,
Yeah.
no.
And people at different parts of the state, you know, they feel them more often depending how close they are to the epicenter.
And I think now we have gone from being like a place where there was just like no earthquakes, you know, like maybe literally single digits a year, to we have thousands of them or something like that, or like hundreds upon hundreds. Like we are the
Well, we probably have earthquakes all the time.
Yeah, but,
ones that are like felt and measurable, that are like, you know...
I have heard that we are the earthquake capital of the world now.
Yeah, yes, we are.
What the fuck? I mean, you tell me what you think like, if you had to guess or say, and I know what, I mean, a lot of people think, what do you think the reason for that is?
Well, a lot of it, people will just say, just to put it simply, oh, it's fracking.
Yeah, that's
And in a very broad, general term, yes, it is. What it's actually coming from is like the disposal wells from the fracking.
So not necessarily the fracking itself.
No, oil companies go in, they drill a well, they frack the underground
which
rock formations,
I mean,
which is basically what they do is they drill a hole down there, they blow some stuff up, which sounds bad enough, but they blow some stuff up, and it releases all sorts of stuff out of the rock formations. A lot of it's natural gas, oil.
And they collect all of it.
And they collect all that, yeah. And, you know, salt water comes up too. That's a big part of it as well. And how they break it up is like sometimes they shoot physical objects out into the ground. They also pour certain chemicals that go down there, and maybe they're like acid-like, and it breaks up the rock formation and stuff. Well, especially if you do stuff like that, that stuff, you can't just leave it down there. You've got to... I think when you extract the, be it the oil or natural gas or the salt water, it all comes up at once. It's not like, you know, the oil just shows up. It's like, hey, here's me, and then you can just leave the rest. Like, it has to be separated. Sure. And, you know, basic laws of physical properties, oil floats to the top.
Sure. You
know, compared with water and stuff. So that's kind of how they collect a lot of that.
Okay.
That stuff that they pour down there comes back up too, and then they've got to do something with it. It's not exactly...
I assume it's just like...
yeah, they can't just go dump it in somebody's drain.
Yeah.
It's, you know, toxic, and this has been something that's been very contentious, where people are like, what exactly is that stuff? Because it is going down in the ground, and they say it's safe, and it goes past the water table, and it's all sealed off, but, you know, cracks happen, accidents happen, earthquakes happen.
Yeah,
you know,
so
things can leak, and you know that, and plus the geology across the country is different in different areas.
Sure.
So what may work for one area this way may work completely different for another part of the country.
Sure.
So that's why people are like, hey, we want to know what that crap is, and a lot of it's not known because these oil companies say, well, it's a trade secret. We can't give out that information because then a rival company might be saying, hey, we'll figure that out and we'll start doing, you know, it's...
So my question is it just that these companies are leaving it down there?
No, what they do is it comes out too, and then they have what's called a disposal well. And then they go and they pump that stuff back into the ground to get rid of it.
Okay.
And to then leave it there.
So it's somewhere
that's what's causing the earthquake, supposedly, because you have...
It's just corroding or eroding away. Or
I don't know if it's so much corroding. It's the fact that, you know, think of it like a cake. You have your different layers of a cake. And that's how you have these different formations, like just from the top of the ground all the way to the however many thousands of feet they go down. Sometimes it's 10,000 feet.
Okay. And
then sometimes they go 10,000 feet out from the bottom of that. Basically, what's happening, I think, is like they're putting the stuff down in the disposal well, and it starts causing slippage. And that, you know, regardless of whether you're putting that stuff down there, that's how an earthquake happens in the first place. Tension builds up between areas of rock and different, fault lines and things like that. And there's that tension there already, and you're adding stuff down there to where it causes it to slip. Well, when it slips, earthquake.
Yeah.
And that's basically how an earthquake happens. I mean, it's a little more complicated than that. But
sure.
Regardless of fracking, you're going to get earthquakes when two formations of rock move, across from one another.
You're gonna, yeah.
Yeah.
So earthquake. Okay, so What tack were you on before I interrupted you and had you give us a little?
Well, basically, we talk about like oil, and the economy here is like so dependent on it, and it's just falling off a cliff. And we can go into like why it's falling off a cliff too. I mean,
I saw a thing today that said that oil may fall to $10 a barrel.
Yeah, that's a little.
What's funny is we sit here and I'm like, man, if I didn't think beyond my nose, I wouldn't give a shit. I'd be like, man, gas is cheap as hell, man.
Yeah, that's great for a consumer.
But you don't think about, but this whole fucking state runs on that, man.
Yeah. Like if you're an energy state,
which we
it's
are,
a big deal.
It's
which we are.
Man,
it's a big deal.
We're really getting really cheap gas.
That affects jobs.
Exactly.
That affects real estate prices.
I'm not saying I want to pay.
That affects other jobs because
gallon.
Those people working for those places don't have jobs, and then they don't go to other places and buy stuff. I mean, you can look back at like 1987. There was a really big oil bust. 86, 87 in the state, and you can see real estate prices fall off the cliff.
Yeah,
the population actually drops off a little bit.
Like people just leaving
because they had to. I mean, so many jobs were somewhere else. You don't have a job, you go to where the jobs are.
So it wasn't a purge or anything like that.
No, I mean it's just people were coming in the night and they disappeared in the morning. Yeah.
Well, no, see, and that's why I just kind of thought, like I'm saying, I don't want to pay $3, $4, $5 for a gallon of gas.
Yeah, and who does?
I'm really, what is gas right now? Like $1? Like
it kind of depends on where you're at. $1.50 basically.
Yeah, which is crazy, man. That's like,
what year is it?
I know, man. It feels like it's like the late '90s again, man. I was like, holy shit. But again, when you think about it, though, you're like, man, it's actually kind of scary to think about because of how much of this state is dependent upon, like you said, these different types of energy doing well.
Yeah.
So I mean, it may not affect me personally right now. But I mean, give it time, and it just might.
Yeah, they've actually done studies on it before, where it's like there is a lag. It just just because it drops today doesn't mean tomorrow the whole economy just goes to shit.
Yeah,
It takes a year
time.
or two.
Yeah,
and that's kind of like going back to the budget thing. They're already cutting out of the budget.
Sure,
but they're saying like, hey, next year maybe
even worse.
Twice as it's going to be worse. Yeah. It's just how worse.
Sure,
and then looking at beyond that.
Yeah,
because we've also had a lot of tax cuts.
Yeah.
And that's what people are kind of complaining about. Like, you've had a lot of tax cuts, and that sounds great. But I think the average for some of the tax cuts was like anywhere from like $30 to $80 a year for everybody.
Which
I mean, cool, but that might pay like one part of one bill of it. And even if you're dead poor, what does that really mean to you?
Yeah.
Not a whole lot. A tank of gas.
Yeah.
Buy the gas so we get the price back.
I think your point is that that's not a massive boost in your quality.
And then you look at like what we're having to deal with besides oil being very low in price and people having to cut just because of that.
Okay.
That's what pisses a lot of people off. Going to like why the price of oil is as bad as it is. Mm-hmm. Some of it plays into that fracking, and some of it plays into just the general economy. A lot of people say, well, the Saudi Arabia, they're flooding the market. That's an easy way of putting it. Well, they're not actually flooding the market. They didn't like up their production. They're actually just keeping the production at the same level. And what they did is they started lowering the price for everywhere, lowering the price. Well, that helps lower the price in the first place, just for the whole market. That also helps lower the price if there was already too much oil in the first place, where in a climate before where they might have cut back production to not have too much, where it makes the price get a lot cheaper for oil. They wouldn't do that either.
Well, and I've heard some stuff too about I don't know that it's in our best interest to have OPEC running things.
Well, no, and this kind of goes into like why they were doing it is like they were trying to grab market share. They were worried that they could kind of see, oil is going to go down one way or another. So they were like, instead of doing what they did in the 80s, which was we're going to just cut production and try and grab some of the money, or try and keep the money in the market by keeping the price up by cutting production.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it's going to fall anyway, and that's what happened back in the 80s. So they're thinking ahead, though. They've got a lot of money put back. They're like, hey, we've got all that money put back. We can, take the hit. We'll lower the price, keep our market share, and at the same time, it's going to run companies in America, a lot of them here in Oklahoma, they're going to have to go out of business or stop drilling as much, whatever.
It's going to hurt
it's
them.
It's going to push them out of the market.
It's going to hurt them more than it's going to hurt the
because
Saudis.
The past few years we've had this big fracking revolution, and that's the America is like, I don't know, I think they were the number one producer here the past few years as far as oil is concerned, which was when was the last time that happened?
Sure.
Decades ago?
Yeah.
And so that alone put way more oil on the market.
Yeah.
There was already too much there in the first place. Prices go down even more. And that kind of leads to what some of these companies are having to do. A lot of these companies are so debt driven. They've taken so much debt, and that's you could maybe blame the policy on interest rates the past 7 or 8 years. They've taken a lot of debt. They have to have production to keep their company solvent.
Yep.
And the prices just keeps going lower. Well,
their return on investment is getting smaller and smaller.
Exactly.
And smaller.
So if they would like to keep the money coming in. Or and if they weren't so bad off with debt, they would say, "Hey, we're going to not produce as much, do the same thing the Saudis were going to do. Hope the price comes back up." Well,
but the Saudis are way better equipped to weather this sort of thing.
Exactly, and they're very debt. They're loaded with debt, so it's like, we could cut back, but man, we got to pay some bills.
And they're also a fucking monarchy, so I mean, it's kind of
the Saudis, yeah.
I mean, it's kind of
exactly.
If
they've that whole time oil was really high. You were saying I don't want to pay $3, $4, $5 a gallon. They were stocking money back.
Yeah,
they were stocking money back, and that's what they're burning through right now. It just depends on how long they can last, how long they can run out. They've got all sorts of mechanisms they can use. But basically, it's also like Sand Ridge Energy. They were delisted off the stock exchange because their stock's basically dirt's more valuable than their stock, so they had to be taken off the stock exchange.
Wow!
Because investors can look at that and be like, yeah,
I don't want anything to do with that.
And that's kind of plays into these disposal wells with the earthquakes. They want these earthquakes start happening. People want them to go like, hey, stop putting that stuff down the disposal well because you're causing the earthquakes.
Yeah.
Well, they're like, we have to keep pumping to still exist as a company.
Yeah.
We've got to put the stuff down the disposal wells.
Yeah.
And that's that give and take. And of course,
where's that genius that's going to come along and be like, wait, I can clean up the disposal wells and make my own industry.
Oh yeah, if they could do that, then there wouldn't be a problem.
But that's the
you
that's the rub, I guess.
Well, like we were saying before, you got to put that stuff somewhere.
Yeah.
So
where are you gonna put it?
Yeah, so that's kind of like
what?
Last few weeks there was a bunch of earthquakes.
If the aliens are watching, we could use some of that.
Yeah, where's that backwards technology from Area 51 going to come into play here, guys?
Yeah, you think there was something on the ship at Roswell, man?
Yeah,
a matter decombobulator.
And that's why oil keeps going down too. Is a lot of these people have companies here slash cost. They've tried to cut this and that, be cheaper to ride this out, and it's just going lower.
Okay, so prognosticate for me.
Okay.
What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to as far as
you could see a couple of companies go bankrupt, and one of them's Chesapeake.
You think Chesapeake? Damn.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. I mean, they're all they're tied up in all
Chesapeake
that
and Sandwich are the biggest ones.
Big ones, yeah.
You
Sandwich
hear,
has just been delisted.
You watch a Thunder game and you're like, how many commercials
Chesapeake
did I just...
Yeah. How many Chesapeake commercials?
Commercials and Devon Energy and all that stuff, and that they just had a skyscraper downtown of Oklahoma City. They're like, hey, we're going to build this. No, we're not. Never mind. Yeah. I mean...
we got to pinch some pennies now.
Yeah, and that got, going back to the budget, that's where people look at that. Like you're just this happens or can happen. Nothing's ever done about it, or not that they're like the burden is on them to you've got to do something about this. Just make jobs somewhere else. I mean, you can't. Nobody can. The government can't just go build a Walmart or something.
Sure. But the governor also
you
has
would like to have some
mind.
Policies where it's like, you know what? Yeah, diversification is pretty good.
But the governor also has to keep in mind that
they're protecting these oil interests.
Yeah, and as much as people may say, I mean, again, I'm not trying to I'm not trying to be like the defender of like, giant corporations, but I mean, I don't necessarily mind them.
I mean, my dad's worked for an oil company his whole, my whole life almost.
Yeah, but see, the governor has to keep in mind too, though, that how bad would it be for the state if Chesapeake just failed?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that means the governor should do things that aren't, proper to help these companies, but at the same time, I think at least I appreciate that it's not an easy. I don't know that there's an easy solution. I guess you could say the easy solution is, well, just stop fucking fracking. Yeah. Okay. But then what happens?
Yeah, well, like I said, some of these companies are like, we have to.
Yeah. How many people are going to lose their jobs if we don't?
Yeah.
And again, and I'm not, I don't know enough about any of this shit to know if there's like, hopefully there's some really smart people somewhere that are trying to figure out a way to, I don't know, make all this shit work. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
I think people have to come to terms with the reality that, oil might not go back up to the high levels it was at. I mean, that when all that first started happening, you had people in the oil industry, there's Tebow Pickens, that OSU, he's a big OSU alum, I guess, and he gives a lot of money to them and the team and just the school in general. Sure. And a lot of people like him were like, oh, by 6 months from now, it will just completely rebound back to the level. I'm like, what's the likelihood of that happening? I mean, that when it drops off that quickly, is it just as likely it's just going to insanely rebound just as quickly? Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, you're hoping everything works out perfectly. And yeah, here we are, year plus later, and it's even worse off than, Yeah. And some people are saying it's going to get even worse from here, which, that's kind of the debate right now. How low can we go, But it just depends.
Well, let's cap this barrel.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I'm back. At least on that topic. Was there anything else local that?
I mean, not really. I mean, there's so much stuff that you can go into with the budget thing. Like, what do you think about the tax cuts? Was that? Do you think it's worth it? Like, I think they came out with a study here the past day or two where it was like, over the past 10 years, there's been $1 billion lost out of the government anyway that could have been taxed
in the state of
Oklahoma. And you've got it's so
again,
like,
I think that we're perpetually overtaxed as citizens. However,
I think a lot of that's sales tax. A lot of people they say talk tax and everyone thinks the federal tax.
But there's a tax for everything.
Exactly. That shit adds up.
Every time you turn around, there's a tax on something. And I get it. Things have to be paid for. The government, the infrastructure that we have just can't run itself.
Yeah.
It's got to be funded somehow. I understand. I get it. However, I'm not saying that I think, I'm thrilled that, we may get, I may get an extra $80, you'll get an extra 100. It's, kumbaya. No. I think it would probably be, personally, I kind of say, keep that $80 if it keeps some necessary system or operation running. My thing is, I think budget cuts, taxes are all endemic of one simple thing. Government is too fucking big.
And that's a great point because, you look at some of these budget cuts, and it's like you can't even follow where half of this is going.
Exactly.
They've got a fund for this over here, and then they moved it over here, and that's something great to talk. Like the lottery, everyone hates. Well, I mean it sounds so great. The lottery, we're going to have it, and people were kind of against it because of gambling, and maybe we're religious. We look down on that, and the state didn't have it, and they always sell it. Well, hey, we're going to give this money to the schools,
and then everybody's for it.
And hey, that's a great, cool. It's a great compromise. But what they do with that is they don't just give hey, we got some extra money, and then we just gave it to the schools, and they've got extra money than they had before. It doesn't work like that. They make a budget at the first of the year. They project, this is, I think, what we're going to get from the lottery.
Yeah.
That could not happen. And then they're like, oh, whoops. shit, you didn't get that much.
Or they
and then they're cutting.
They
cut
it
out of the budget.
Places. They're like, yeah, well, we gave this.
Or
much
they put it somewhere else,
and then we put this much over here, and there.
And there's some kind of law in Oklahoma's constitution where it's like, if this certain fund
that
or
just happened, I think.
Type of money is for this, you cannot use it for
anything,
that over here, something else.
That was just on the last state question thing, wasn't it?
Wasn't
it something
so.
I think it was something along those lines. Now listen, okay. Everybody always, it's like the way to get people is to go, oh, we're going to do it for school, for the kids.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, dude. I've lived in this town, Norman, Oklahoma. I don't give a fuck. I live in Norman, Oklahoma. I have lived here for 20 plus years. There are I don't understand why we need so many schools. I know there's a lot of people here. Have you seen some of these new schools? Shit, dude, when I went through middle school here, dude, we had... It was like it was one big building with prefab walls, and I mean, I was a 3.0 student. I mean, I got through somehow. I guess what I'm saying is, we justify so much to build new schools, and we've got, I think every president we've ever had's got a school in this damn town. I mean,
I see. And maybe they're neat. I don't know.
I don't know if they're neat.
Because I mean, you got to think there has been a population boom in this state.
And I get that, but I mean, literally, I can name 10 elementary schools or 10 K through 12 schools within 5 miles. Yeah, I can name 10. This isn't that big of a town.
Well, and that kind of goes to I think.
I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, and I just don't get it.
Well, that's kind of what goes to what I'm wanting to bring.
That's how you sell people and stuff. Pass this so we can do this for the schools.
Yeah, exactly.
And everybody just comes out in droves. And I'm not saying don't, but
where does that money go? That's kind of what I'm wanting to bring up. Is like, you know, if they gave, you look at like the lottery and all that type of stuff. If they gave that much extra money to these schools, we would be, you know. We'd everybody be scientists around here. We'd be so goddamn educated.
Yeah, we'd have.
And that's the point. We're not.
Yeah, and again, I mean, you know, the whole lottery thing. I mean, if you've got a religious hang up about it, okay, whatever. I mean, personally, I think if it's your money, you should be able to do just about whatever the hell you want with it. If you want to gamble it, cool. Which is kind of funny. We allow the lotto here anywhere, but you can't. Only like tribes can run gambling, but whatever. Like you know, card games and slot machines. You can't
casinos and stuff like that.
Yeah, casinos. You and I couldn't go open a casino.
Yeah,
which it is literally impossible for us to do it. But whatever. I mean, that's a whole nother podcast probably. But I guess what I'm saying is I don't really. Every time I hear something's to like, you know, help a school or do this or build a new school, I'm kind of just like that. I feel like a sucker. I feel like, man, I'm just this is they know that's the way to get people to come out and vote for it.
Yeah.
Because for some reason everybody thinks we just need more and more schools. I just don't get it. I mean, I guess if it makes it, maybe it's better if it's easier for everybody. Maybe there's a school within a mile of you, no matter where you are in our town.
Well, it's kind of like
it's
a basic political argument where it's like we don't want to just throw money at it. You know, you would just throw more money at it than we just solve the problem, or
guess,
or we get better test results, and you know all that.
Yeah, well, for all the schools we're building, it doesn't seem like we're getting any smarter.
Well, like I said, they don't pay teachers. We're like bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, well, let's not pay existing teachers more. Let's just go hire more at the same low rate.
That's something that just got approved. I think this past week, where it was like they have some kind of. I don't know if this is statewide or if it's just for Oklahoma City. They want a penny sales tax to be added, and that will help increase teacher pay. Which that sounds so cool.
And it'll pass probably because of it.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, and that was basically what was going on. Is like, well, some people challenge it and say, "Hey, can we even put this on the ballot? We think it's unconstitutional."
Oh, really?
And, but here it goes back into this whole government thing, man, where it's like that sounds really good, but what they're really doing is like, okay, they'll tax people a penny, and then it will go into some fun bullshit budget with something else, and they'll take. I think it's like the fund or the budget for like roads and something else, and then they'll take a little bit extra out of that to help pay for. So in a way, it's like, well, then you're taking money from something else.
I swear, it's like Superman 3 in Office Space, man. They're going to take a fraction of each cent.
That's exactly.
I mean, it's like they play a shell game with this, man.
You can't follow this shit.
Exactly.
It's not like I said. It's not like that. We're just giving. We got $10 and we put $10 over here. No, that's not what's going on, man.
I think that's the main problem with just government in general is that.
And they try and make those laws for the Constitution where it's like, yeah, you've got to use it for this and you can't use it for that. But that didn't solve a damn thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just the government, everything is so serpentine and you fall down a rabbit hole like whenever you try to find out, like you said, where's the money go? Let me follow the money.
Where's it coming from? What's it a part of? I don't even know.
So, I mean, personally, I think a lot of issues could be, now granted, it's not going to be painless, but I mean, I think state and federal wise, taking a cleaver and really starting to trim some of the fat off of state, local, federal government.
And that's why people get so pissed off, is like, you have this kind of stuff happen, we've got to cut stuff, and it's like, you're starting to cut, like, fire stations, police
Sure.
work, any stuff you would like, you know what, I don't want to cut that.
Exactly, yeah, no. I almost think it's like you almost gotta just go back to not to basics. You gotta go back to the drawing board and go, what really should a state, local government make sure is provided? Because there was a point in time when that had to have been the case, when just the framework to run a society was what these governments did, and it might have only lasted for a brief glimmer of a moment, and then let's have a department that manages the hedgerows in the parks, and let's have a department that manages how many pounds of refuse we'll pick up on Fridays but not on Mondays and sometimes on Wednesdays.
Oh yeah,
and let's have a department that
bureaucracy
makes sure that the width and depth of the rubber on your tires is enough to make sure that the roads, that we also have another department to make sure.
And then we take some federal money, and then
and then the federal government comes and says, "Hey, we do the same shit just on a bigger level."
Yeah, I know.
And I think that's just part of the whole problem.
Because a lot of people here, especially on state and local levels, they'll be like, "Yeah, we could pay for that ourselves, but man, we could do this, and we could get a grant from the federal side. Why spend our money?
Yeah,
we can spend their money."
I'm not a fan of taking.
We're a small state. We take from everybody else.
We need to I think it'd just be best if you could just not. But I'm not going to act like I know how that would absolutely work. But that to just not take so much money from the Fed. But maybe we have no choice. I don't know really. I'm not an expert. I just know every time I hear about the copious amounts of money we're taking from the Fed, I'm just kind of like, God, dude.
Well, it's just kind of interesting because people they'll look at California and oh God, you got to pay so many taxes to live there and stuff. And it's crazy. That state helps pay for us as a state because we'll take federal money to build all those roads and all sorts of different projects.
Which is just a broken system
that we wouldn't be able to pay for ourselves. So since they kicked into the kitty, basically, we get to profit. I don't know, some people might profit off of it, but as a state, we get to come out of it. There's another way to look at it too.
If you want to look at roads, it'd be like, okay, that's great, California, but do you want to have a road that lets you get to New York? Well, it's got to go through here. So,
yeah, we're all in this together, man.
You can say that it's charity that you're building a road in our state, but you can't build a road around our state because you'd go through another state.
Yeah.
You've got to go through somewhere. Yeah. So, but anyway, I'm done. I'm done. I've vented enough about my dislike of big government.
Can of worms, man.
It is. And I don't think it matters which side of the aisle you're on.
No. That's what's kind of interesting is we're definitely a red state, and you have people from all sides of age, demographics, genders. Sure. Like you said, Democrat, Republican, just it doesn't matter. What the hell,
Yeah, I don't know that there's any. I don't think that it makes absolute sense to anybody.
No.
And I think that's part of the problem.
They could come out with so many stories in Oklahoma and be like, well, this is, blah, blah, and who actually understood half that?
Yeah.
Even if you're someone who I really follow this a lot and try and understand a lot of that.
Sure.
It's over your head.
Yeah. No, and plus I get fatigued.
Yeah,
just
you're like, I
talking
want to
about it.
care. I can't.
Yeah, I get to a certain
Sounds
point,
horrible.
I would just mentally check out, and I'm just like, fuck it, dude. I don't know anymore. The numbers got too many shells, too many moving parts. Yeah. I can put together a piece of IKEA furniture with an instruction manual.
You can follow some instructions. All right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I could follow some instructions, but if you give me the couch with no instructions,
Not happening.
I'll just leave it in the
All right.
box. I mean, I'll pay somebody to do it. But anyway, so...
Hey, everybody. Now we're going to talk about some NFL.
Hey, what, real quick, actually. National title game. College football's over. Alabama beats Clemson 45-40.
Were you happy? You talked about how,
No.
who were you wanting to go for?
In the
Screw
end,
Clemson from last
I know.
episode.
And then I was like, nah, I think I was just overreacting a bit. I mean, dude, Clemson's
They were both a good...
I think
really
in the
good
end, I
teams.
would have liked to have seen Clemson won. I at the the last because I like Brent Venables. I like their team, man. I like the way they play. I hate that OU can't fucking figure them out, but I like their team.
Yeah.
And hey, you know what, dude? Give it up to Alabama, dude. Darth Saban, the greatest. I mean, I think you got to start.
How
talking
can you
about
not?
That dude's got.
He's like Bill Belichick of college.
Yeah, I mean, and Alabama's just, dude, ridiculous, man. Was it 5 titles in 10 years?
Yeah, hell, it could be in any year. It's just 5 titles. You're like...
Yeah, but he's done it in 10 years.
Yeah, I know.
And in the BCS era, when I think probably most people would say football is at it hasn't gotten less competitive across the board.
Yeah, I think it's gotten more competitive.
I think parity has... Yeah, I think there's been more parity as opposed to less over the years. Not to take anything away from, teams of the past, but I just think... It's crazy to think that Alabama, Nick Saban, 1 title at LSU, and then the other 4 at Alabama, because there's so much success on such a consistent basis. It's just crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And not just to have success, but to be the pinnacle of success. I mean, hats off. I mean,
there's nothing really else to say.
Yeah,
It's like, damn,
Yeah,
well,
I wish OU could have gotten it done, but hey, maybe next year.
oh well.
Yep. Okay. So let's talk. Okay, NFL. You had some playoff games this weekend. Really, the main thing that I kind of had heard some on the radio, some chatter about and stuff was the state of the backup quarterback in the NFL, and kind of a lot of people bemoaning just how bad these backups are.
Well, I think it kind of plays. We talked about some NFL last week. It kind of plays into what we were talking about. Like, hell, just not even the backups, just some of the quarterbacks.
Sure.
And I've kind of told you this too, where it's like I just don't think you're winning, or contending for a title or Super Bowl, unless you've got one of these guys that is just hey, he's the franchise quarterback. A lot of people have quarterbacks, but that doesn't mean anything. And you kind of say, well, maybe there's a team with defense and that bus driver and stuff, but I'm like...
Yeah, like, I think, he had a great game this weekend, but I think if you looked at, like, the teams that are remaining in the playoffs, I think if you looked at them and said, who has the least quote-unquote franchise quarterback, I think maybe you might say the Chiefs with Alex Smith.
Because, that's in the playoffs right now?
Yeah, that's currently still going.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah,
but
the Chiefs.
The thing about Alex Smith, though... is that Alex Smith just isn't as flashy. Alex Smith is the ultimate bus driver. He is the dude. I am. Cam Newton's gonna run all over the field.
Make some crazy passes.
Yeah, Tom Brady's gonna bomb it all over the place. Ben Roethlisberger's is gonna pull some magic out of nowhere. After getting hit 3 times and still managing to get the ball downfield. I'm gonna throw the ball. I'm going to throw it short, not throw interceptions, but actually kind of started to bomb it now.
Are you talking about Alex Smith?
Alex Smith.
Yeah,
and
that's kind of what's
we're just going to
crazy.
kind of slow and steady, just kind of play our game. And I don't think that necessarily means that he's less the franchise quarterback, because hell, how much success has Alex Smith had? He's had some pretty good success. The dude's still in the league. He's never. He's been a backup to Kaepernick, but I think we're seeing now that maybe that was a bad move on San Francisco's part.
Oh yeah,
to push him to the side. Now, granted, there was a time and a place,
coach or any of that.
Yeah, pushing their coach away and all that. I mean,
that's just. I just don't know how you could be a fan of a team like that where it's like, oh well, we just didn't do as good this year, and I'm like, it has nothing to do with that.
Yeah,
it has every reason. Like you gutted that team,
sure,
front office, coach, whatever, and.
But I guess the question is,
what do you expect?
How good should you expect a backup quarterback to be in the NFL?
Well, I would say like some of these starting quarterbacks are backup quarterbacks.
Yeah, but I mean, just like how good should Landry Jones be? When Ben Roethlisberger goes down, Landry Jones comes in and just kind of, doesn't do so well. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger has to come back and, with the help of some crazy penalties at the end, manages to get his team to win. But in the time when he left with an injury and he came back, Landry Jones did nothing. Mm-hmm. Nothing. He looked lost.
Yeah.
And
sometimes they come out and they do some amazing thing. They will win a game for you. You're like, oh,
and
wow,
and I just heard this like sort of kind of like almost, I don't know if it's prevailing opinion, but it was just the opinion seemed to be like, what is wrong with the backup quarterback? And I'm kind of thinking to myself, these guys don't get the reps.
No, and they're just like some of these like I'm saying, some of these starters, they're just thrown in at a team. So, used to you would draft a quarterback and say he was going to be your starter anyway, much less your backup. They would, get him used to the system.
Sure.
Get him, like you're saying, some reps maybe. Maybe it's the end of a game or you're blowing somebody out. Hey, you have your backup come in.
Which I did hear a guy say that he thought it, and he might have just been, he probably was being silly. It was some guy on the radio. I can't remember who it was. But he said he thought it should be mandatory that if you're up by like 3 touchdowns, you have to put in your backup quarterback.
It's just something you should kind of, I mean,
it's probably smart.
Depending on how late in the game it is, but yeah.
I mean,
if it's like 5 minutes left in the game and you're up by 3 touchdowns, because then sometimes your franchise guy is out there and then gets hurt, and a lot of people are asking, why the hell was he out there?
Sure. But anyway, I just kind of thought it was an interesting topic just because I just don't see why people, I guess some people expect so much of these backups, and I've said it to you for a while. I look around at the league and I'm like, why the fuck isn't Tim Tebow on a team?
You and Tim Tebow, dude.
I'm not even like this. The dude killed OU. I hate him, and I hate him for that.
Yeah.
But the guy can play. You could say, he throws the ball he throws. It looks like a dead duck. Yeah, well, he wins games. Who gives a shit? Ask the Cincinnati Bengals right now. Would you have preferred to have lost the way you did, or maybe won and Tim Tebow was your quarterback and his QB rating, quote unquote, was 30?
Yeah, well, QB ratings shit.
Yeah,
anyway.
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Stat.
And whenever he threw that touchdown pass to AJ Green, boy, it wobbled sideways and end over end. Who fucking cares? The dude just somehow
the people that's going to be paying his paycheck care. That's what it boils down to. Which makes
no sense to me.
Well, I mean, look at like what happened with Joe Flacco.
What happened to Al Davis? Just win, baby.
I know, but they're still running a business, man.
I guess.
And it's like I was about to say, like, look at Joe Flacco. He's kind of like, that team was viewed as like, well, great defense. He's kind of a bus driver. He has an amazing year, and you could say he was driving the bus, but what about Ray Rice? What about Anquan Bolden? What about Torrey Smith? Remember Ed Dickson, Dennis Pitta, 2 tight ends? I mean, he had a hell of an offense. Sure. They won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
His contract was up.
They paid him.
Well, that's what the debate was. It's like,
are they going to pay him? Yeah.
They're like, well, yeah, and how much? It's like, gosh, I mean, he's not amazing, but we just won the. Yeah, he got it done. We won the Super Bowl. He had his best career, stat wise.
His best year, yeah.
His best year in his career. Wow, what do we give him more? Do we give him less than what the going rate for a Super Bowl winning quarterback is? I don't know, and then they ended up paying him, but it's like that's what look at Tim Tebow. That's why he left Denver, man, because he had been there for a few years. Contract was going to come up. No one was going to.
They got paid. Manning. They would have kept him.
They got to the Super Bowl, which I'm not saying Tim Tebow couldn't have done, but it's like, would you rather have paid Peyton Manning?
Oh no,
would you rather have paid Tim Tebow and hope to get the Super Bowl?
I totally understand why the Broncos.
That's why Tim Tebow gets shoved off somewhere.
No, I totally understand that. I totally understand why Peyton Manning was taken over Tim Tebow. It makes total sense.
Yeah.
One is a proven commodity. One is one that I think did a pretty good job of showing his mettle. I mean, he won the first playoff game that Denver had won since John Elway left.
I would also say Pittsburgh handed it to him, but
well,
they won. Yeah, a lot of people don't remember that, man. He won so many games, and then like the last 7 games, he lost 5 out of the last 7.
Yeah,
they did get on. So I mean,
and they got in the playoffs and won a game. But
true.
I'll say this: you tell me, you're the owner of, I don't know,
whatever team, some NFL team.
Do you give him a chance? Like, you look at the Eagles, the preseason. Tim Tebow was one of the most impressive looking players in the preseason. Now, I know preseason's preseason, but hey, they play it for a fucking reason. And he gets cut. And he doesn't, but he looked extremely good. His pass looked better.
He had worked with somebody, right?
Yeah.
He had worked with Gruden on his...
He worked with Kurt Warner, I think.
Okay, somebody,
And he was making some, like...
Working his mechanics.
making some decisions of, like, I'm going to try to be more of an X's and O's kind of guy.
Pocket passer.
I'm going to try to get better at that. And he looked really good, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I thought he looked really solid. I mean, dude, I was going to draft his ass on my fantasy team, like as my backup, because I thought he was going to make the team.
Okay.
He was going to be my backup. I was like, I thought Sam Bradford would get hurt again, and he didn't, but, that's fine. That's great. I'm not trying to say I want Sam Bradford to get hurt, but I thought Sam Bradford was kind of, just a bust. And Sam Bradford, actually, I mean, he didn't have a bad year. I mean,
but he didn't have a great one either.
He didn't have a great one either. He made
jury's still. I mean, that's what sucks about. Same thing with Sam Bradford. How much do you pay that guy? He hasn't been able to prove himself, and you can blame injuries. You can blame he hasn't had a great team around him. He hasn't had an offensive line, or he hasn't had receivers, and they're dropping the ball. Yeah, it's fine.
It just boggles my mind.
How much do you pay him at the end of the day when the time comes? And you're like, I got to write this guy into the contract.
Yeah.
Do you want to go? Oh, you know what? Screw it. I'll pay him $20 million because he can win a playoff game.
Sure.
Or do I want to take another chance and hopefully get that guy?
Yeah.
That badass.
I mean, I guess it all depends on what kind of the draft class looks like, but
all of that stuff too.
I mean, I don't know, man. I just don't get it. Like when I look around and see some of the quarterbacks that are just like sitting on a bench and just collecting a check, and I'm kind of like, man,
best job in the league's third string quarterback if they got one.
Yeah. Why isn't Tim Tebow on a team? And if it's for all the religious convictions and stuff, I mean, I'm like, dude, there's so many guys that are just,
I don't think it was any of that. I think it was just the fact that he gets on a team, all this, this talk about money and like that comes into play. And the NFL is such a reactionary type of league where it's like, man, our starting guy had 1 or 2 bad games, and everyone's like, hey, put Tim Tebow in. He was third string quarterback at Denver. He wasn't the second. He wasn't the backup.
No, yeah.
Everyone knows Tim Tebow's there.
Yeah, but I mean, those are fucking fans.
I understand, but they help pay the bills sometimes. Season ticket holders, and people listen to that shit. I mean, sponsors the team. You might be like, I don't know why, but they do.
That's fair, but at the same time, I don't know, man. It just doesn't make any sense. I don't know. Anyway,
I mean, if you're if you're a rich guy and you've got this team and you want a for sure thing, or do you want something that's not for sure? Any investment, much less a quarterback.
Well, I mean, obviously you want a sure thing, but
that's why Tim Tebow's not there.
But what's a sure thing? How many sure things?
Hey,
are
fair
there
enough. That's a great point. But do you want it to be something that you hope could be more controllable, or do you want something that, well, even however hard we try to control this, the fans are just going to go ape shit over Tim Tebow?
And you know what else they're going to do?
I would not want Tim Tebow on my team.
They're going to buy the shit out of his jersey.
Yeah, and they did. That's basically why the Jets had him for a year.
Yeah.
I thought was it a year or 2 years?
I think it was.
They got him, and they were like, "Hey, man, buy your Tim Tebow jerseys." And
yeah, which I mean,
they made more than they had to pay him. He come out on top.
Yeah, I just think it's. I don't know. I just think it just seems so strange to me that he. Here's the thing. He never got another shot after Denver. He never even started anywhere else.
No, I mean, you could say he was on a team that people looked at him and he got a shot.
Sure, yeah, but I mean,
he was on Jets. He went to New England.
Who was the Jets quarterback when he was there? Was that...
I think that was Mark Sanchez's last year.
Okay, so Sanchez was there.
This is a guy you've been to 2 AFC championships.
Yeah, so he's not
games
previously. I mean, that's going to be...
Should he have gotten a shot?
Well, no.
Mark Sanchez has one bad game, like Tebow.
No. I'm saying, I guess I'm saying the teams that he ended up getting any chance on, not necessarily a shot, but a chance. Mm-hmm. By a shot, I mean like you got to go in a game and fucking play.
Uh-huh.
They never used him, and they never used him at all in New York. Like you said, I think they just did it for the damn money for the jerseys.
They put him in on a punt and like, oh, he's in Wildcat. He's going to do...
Was he on the Patriots for a minute? Like in the off-season or something?
Well, yeah, the start of the season training camp.
And then he got cut.
He was cut.
And then he goes to the Eagles after, I think, a year or two layoff. Like, he wasn't involved at all. And then
he was doing broadcasting, probably for SEC Network.
SEC, I think, yeah. And then he comes in and, dude, like I said, man, those preseason games, dude, I actually watched some of the preseason. I'd never done that before. I was trying to do my homework for, fantasy. And it paid off.
Hey, all right.
But no,
champ. All right now.
But he looked good. And it just makes no sense that not only... Okay, so he gets cut. They decide, Chip Kelly and all those guys decide, well, Bradford's our guy, and we're comfortable with Sanchez as the backup. Okay. Nobody else, at least as far as I know, maybe they did, but nobody else even gave him a fucking look. Nobody.
There might be more money in the play. How much would you have to pay him?
Fuck, man, probably not much. The dude's desperate to play.
Not much could still be way more than, say, you have a rookie that's on a rookie scale contract. That could still be a tenth of the...
It could be, Well, I don't know if he qualifies. I don't know if he qualifies.
He's a veteran.
I guess he does qualify.
So he'd have to automatically be... So it's like, why would our third-string quarterback...
You'll make it back in jersey sales, though, man.
Yeah. And give you all this, God... Like you just said with Mark Sanchez, he has 2 bad games, everyone. Do you want that out there?
I mean, fuck, if you're going to go 4-12 anyway, who cares?
Hey, they did. They actually did pretty good this year.
The Jets did, the Jets did, yeah. But I'm saying if, you're like I don't know, dude, one of some of these really bad fucking teams.
Well, and it goes to what you're talking about, like with the state of the backup quarterback. And like I'm saying, even with just the starting quarterback.
Yeah, I didn't mean to get on a tangent about Tebow.
Well, no, it's related because people like, you draft a quarterback, and like I was saying earlier, you used to kind of groom these guys.
Sure.
Now it's like...
You just get thrown into the fire.
You just get thrown out there. Well, you know what? You didn't do good the first so many games. Screw you. See you later.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's totally called for.
Sure.
Because you're like, wow, that guy does suck.
Yeah.
But some of it might be like, he got thrown into the fire. Maybe that shakes his confidence. Maybe that's why he's not playing.
Or he's just on a bad team.
Or both.
Yeah, like
I'm on the Jaguars and I'm just getting my ass pummeled every game. And maybe I had some talent, but God Almighty, I'm on my back half the time.
Like Sam Bradford in St. Louis to begin with.
You can make that argument.
He just got murdered.
Yeah.
So, and I mean that probably didn't do a lot of favors for his, overall.
In a way, this was his first. Other than his rookie season, this was his first
healthy, quote unquote,
full season.
Yeah.
So. And someone could argue, same thing. He didn't have wide receiver, blah blah. Oh, yada yada.
I guess my point is, in the end, I think that some people may expect too much of these backups. If you don't get to play, you can't really develop.
They tried to do it with Blake Bortles. Blake Bortles in Jacksonville. They drafted him. He's going to be our future guy.
Yep.
We're not going to throw him into the fire.
Yep.
Week or two went by.
They threw him into the fire.
Because one, I think maybe an injury happened.
Yeah.
But two, it was like, this other guy's playing so goddamn bad. Why don't you just go ahead and use Blake Bortles?
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, and see that it's more that pressure. Why don't you just use Blake Bortles?
Yeah.
This guy sucks so much, we could just give him a shot. Remember, there's that. Give him a shot. Give him a shot. Why don't you just play Tebow? It's where it goes, man. And people, owners and coaches, they don't want to hear that shit.
Yeah.
They're like, I want this guy to fucking go in because I said so.
Sure.
I don't give a what you think. Like, I said it. I'm the coach. I'm the GM. I'm the owner.
Yeah.
A lot of that plays into it too, regardless of whether season ticket holders are upset or sponsors, any of that crap.
Sure. Okay, well, that's really all I had on it.
It does play into what we were talking about last week, where it's just like, it's happened so much, and so many teams don't have a quarterback. It's just like most of the league is just, I can't watch it, dude. I can't watch hey, we got Ryan Fitzpatrick this year after he's bounced off 3 other teams, and you know what, baby, we're making a run to the Super Bowl. I don't think so. Just pump the brakes, man. All right?
Yeah, no,
Case Keenum's going to take us all the way up there. No, he's not.
No, he's not. No, he's not.
God, and that's why, you brought up like Aaron Rodgers. Well, hey, I could at least go like, well, he's Aaron Rodgers. He's won a Super Bowl.
Yep.
He's actually got talent around him. Even though they're playing like shit, I can't write them off.
Sure.
Like the Giants.
Yep. And you can't write them off. Then they just won.
But I can write off,
the Texans.
the Dolphins.
The Texans are in the playoffs.
The Texans.
Like,
God almighty, they just got
guys.
destroyed.
Yeah. Their quarterback play was so bad they lined a defensive lineman up at quarterback.
And it still didn't work.
And it did not work. He rushed for a 2-yard loss. So whatever.
I don't know, man. I don't know. It's just like I said, it just makes for some ugly football this year.
Yeah.
And some of it's kind of cyclical, depending on, like you said, draft class, who's retiring, who's in the league, who's been injured that year, that whole thing. But it's at a low right now.
Yeah.
You could say some of it might be because, well, some of the greats we're waiting for them to retire, like Manning.
Yeah.
Brady's not far off.
No.
Those 2 leave the league. It's a whole new league out there right now.
Yep.
Because there's some people that have established themselves, but it's like, man, not too long ago, these were the youngins.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson, Cam Newton. Aaron Rodgers is more up there than you think.
Sure.
But it's crazy.
Yep. Well, you ready to get out of here?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So, UFP podcast at gmail.com.
Yeah, that's our email.
At UFP on Twitter.
Yes, and thank you for all the people that have been following. It's just been every day it grows and grows, and
we're getting stronger.
Yeah, we're getting stronger. We're gaining strength.
And what is it? Unidentified Flying Podcast on Facebook.
Yeah. Like us on Facebook. Spread it around. Tell your friends, and they'll tell 2 friends, and they'll tell 2 friends,
there you go.
and so on.
Okay, so next podcast, I'm not afraid to say it. I'm going to go ahead and let a little bit of the cat out of the bag.
We've been teasing it for a little bit.
We're going to do a big X-Files episode. We're going to talk about some other stuff other than X-Files, stuff related to X-Files that I think we're going to have a special guest on, and we'll get to that when we get there. But look forward to that. We're going to try to have it out before the new X-Files, mini-series or whatever we're going to call it, premieres next Sunday, the 24th.
Yeah.
Or no, I'm sorry. Not this next Sunday, the Sunday after that.
Okay.
Try to have it out before then. Fingers crossed. So be looking for it. So until then, this has been Drew and
I'm Brad.
And you've been listening to the Unidentified Flying Podcast.